pretty thick. Not only does Triumph install the world's largest motorcycle engine with 2.5 liters, no, the torque of 221 newtons can also be considered record-breaking. The test clarifies whether the Triumph Rocket 3 is enough for more than driving straight ahead. A lap around this motorcycle takes longer than usual simply because of its length of 2,500 millimeters. But another reason for the loss of time is the loving details that are only gradually discovered. Sure, the Rocket is a cruiser, but thanks to the fabulous performance values, it's an announcement that supports the design. The exhaust, for example, is a feast for the eyes, as is the intake tract. And who says that cables, hoses and wires have to be visible? The Triumph is clean, the only visible thing is the steel-braided brake lines. Worth a second look is something that is otherwise trampled underfoot. The two-fold passenger footrests are an engineering statement. The GT version has been tested. Its technical sister is the R, on which you sit a little higher and the foot pegs are mounted much further back than on the GT. If the R is already a cruiser, the GT goes one step further. The three-cylinder engine with a displacement of 2.5 liters is the defining element in the Triumph. Installed longitudinally, it produces 167 horsepower and the famous 221 Nm of torque. To keep everything under control and on the road, Triumph gave its Rocket an extensive electronics package with cornering ABS, traction control, for driving modes, cruise control, and finally an easy-to-read color TFT cockpit. The frame of the Rocket 3 is made of aluminum, plus there is a single-sided swing arm and a monoshock absorber. Of course, there is plenty of space behind the handlebars inclined towards the rider. This also applies to the second row, although the bench doesn't look like much here. It's still comfortable, and that's what it's all about. If the 221 newtons push forward, the next curve approaches all the faster. It's good if you can safely brake the 320 kilos plus driver. The Rocket is not lacking in braking power. Brembo's Stylema brake system relies on powerful 320 double discs and radially mounted 4-piston monoblocks. At the rear, a 300mm single disc with a Brembo M4.32 brake caliper works, all of very high quality. Enough amazement, let's go. And how, the tester mentally tuned into a mountain of torque, but he had gotten a mountain. By the way, the new Rocket can do this much better than the old one. The current version does not have such a violent torque drop as its predecessors. Between 3,000 and 6,000 tours, more than 200 newtons are now always available. So things are progressing mightily on the straights. But life is rarely a permanent straight. Why should motorcycling make an exception here? It doesn't either. Braking is due before the curve. Two things about it: you should brake the Rocket in any case, and more so than on other motorcycles. The lean angle freedom of the Rocket is rather poor due to its design. The second, however, is more surprising. The brakes are more than up to a sporty driving style, extremely powerful and easy to dose. This system would also look good on a super sports car. The Rocket also lies unexpectedly joyfully into the curve. Of course, it is not a cornering star, and serpentines need to be retracted carefully. But it can do more, much more than one would expect from it with the equally royal wheelbase of 1,680 millimeters. The ultra-wide tires could be a hindrance. They are Avon Cobra chrome tires in the huge dimensions 150/80-17 at the front and 240/50-16. But lo and behold, not even these have a fun curbing effect. The comfortable seating position and the far forward footrests of the GT immediately give rise to a cruiser feeling. With the unusual, sporty talents of the Triumph still in mind, something suddenly catches your eye: the driving comfort. Of course, not weighing like a heavy tanker, such a thing is not delivered today. But with this elaborate chassis with a live weight of 320 kilos, one would have expected more. Not to be misunderstood, the GT is by no means uncomfortable, but here it is not enough to achieve top values. Do you notice anything else? True, I mentioned the engine in the first paragraph after driving off, but shouldn't it be worth at least 5 paragraphs at these values? After all, record-breaking. But I'm repeating myself. In fact, the engine shapes every ride with the Rocket. But by the way, more in the form that you don't have to worry about it. There is always enough of everything. This, in turn, leads to a sovereignty of locomotion in appearance which is reflected throughout the motorcycle. Result: there are many cruisers, all the Harleys, Indians and even the Goldwing cannot go unnamed. The Rocket is a very peculiar reinterpretation of the class. It is modern and at the same time rooted in old values, delivering records without aggressively putting them in the shop window. It's just there. Like single malt whiskey, it could be done without, but what's the point?
Drei, zwei, eins, Stoff. Bin im 5. Gang. Zack. Ja.